Welcome to the GoBe podcast. We're going to cover veterans and business issues. Today we have Logan from Ace Hardware. How you doing?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. So today I wanted to cover a bit about franchises and kind of the state of franchises that are being presented to veterans or like yourself. You're in the reserves. And I mean, my thought is that I think most of these franchises that are presented to veterans are basically dog water, as the kids would say. But I brought you on because I know that ACE and their co-op structure is really what I think a lot of veterans should be looking for when they're EASing from any franchise. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But currently, right now, you are on Camp Pendleton.
I'm actually down in Miramar.
Okay, you're in Miramar.
I'm with
Okay.
4th Medical Battalion. It's
Okay.
where 4th Tanks used to be before the Marine Corps made that choice to get rid of tanks.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I knew that you're a reserve officer right now, and it gives you a chance to do, you know, a lot more in business than I think you obviously being active duty.
Correct.
But is that how is it balancing the reserve your reserve duties with also being a business owner, which sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I honestly think it's the best of both worlds in a lot of cases. You still get to go out there, shoot guns every month, and on the other side, I also get to work in my business, own my store, and that's really truly what I love. So I think it's the best of both worlds. I think the common misconception about the reserves is it's not just the 1 weekend a month. There's stuff that's due every week still, and there's PowerPoints and
Well, I'm sure, especially as an officer, I'm sure there's a lot
correct.
more duties, that you have than your typical lance corporal or something.
Correct. So we have to have all those admin tasks done before we get to the weekends. That way we can actually conduct training on the weekends. So it is work during the week and stuff like that, but it's not too much. But it's enough where you still get your hands dirty and we also get to live your other life too. So I enjoy that part.
Yeah, even when it comes to the military in general, I think a lot of people kind of downplay the reserve opportunity in general because I guess the biggest problem with the reserve opportunity, at least for my friends who have been in the reserves,
Hmm.
is you still have to make money.
Yeah.
That's usually the hard part. And guys will, usually like drive Uber or do something kind of part time.
Yeah.
And especially here in California, you just can't make that work. But it seems like the opportunity that Ace has given you really tends to gel well with your duties as a Marine Corps Reserve officer.
Oh, definitely. I think it's given me the best opportunity I had to go do what I want, grow the business how I want, and not have to be stuck to the store every day. Thankfully, I have a great team that allows me to do that. But it means I can go out in the world. I can come do things like this during the week and not have to worry about, well, I hope they didn't close the doors, they didn't shut off the lights on me.
It's and that's always a great thing is having an excellent team, and being able to build that up. And at 24 years old, man, that's amazing.
Thank you.
That you're able to get everything together like that. So kind of get into a little bit about you know from what we've spoken about and a little bit of research I've done
Hmm.
here is what brought you to Ace Hardware over? I'm sure there was a lot of other things you were considering.
Yeah. So it was actually kind of coincidence I came upon Ace. So my first job in high school was at an Ace Hardware when I was
Okay.
16. And I worked there during the summer and I worked there for when I went to college, I'd come back and work there too. And I just loved it. I loved being there and stuff like that. And then moved to a different store, the Oceanside store, and I met the owner there. And I was like, hey, if you ever want to sell, let me know. I think this would be a really cool opportunity in life to have. And one day she did let me know she was trying to sell it. And that's kind of how that story goes down.
Okay.
But my degree is actually in construction engineering and management. So before this whole opportunity came up, I was ready to go be like a project manager on a job site or do something with my degree actually. But I think this opportunity is really the best thing for me that could have happened.
Yeah, and I know that. So first off, Ace has been around for 100 years, right?
Yeah, this is their 100th year anniversary.
Okay, and I could see that you're wearing the old school logo right there with the actual Ace fighter plane on
Correct.
it, which was like more of like a World War I thing.
Yeah, they were founded right after World War One. They're actually founded so they could buy sponges at a better deal. That
Okay,
was like
I didn't know it
that
was
was why
sponges.
they were founded. So it's really a weird thing. But yeah, they're developed after and modeled after the Aces, the fighter pilots, and during World War One. So
Cool. And so, kind of get a little bit more just into the franchising overall thing. And, you could tell me if you have any opinions on this, but I think that, Ace does three things really well that I think any franchise should be able to do, or at least I would say two out of three. Not everybody can have all three of them down pat. I think franchises, they all have salespeople and they all try to get as many franchises as they can, and they're more
mhm.
concerned about growing their franchises more so than the individual franchisees. In a majority of cases, I actually don't think that's the case with Ace at all. But I think the first thing that Ace does really well that you should be looking for in any franchise is the branding.
Correct.
And it's sort of a thing where you can walk in with a shirt, with that exact shirt on, basically anywhere you want to go, and people know what you do.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that also goes into having, was there 5,000 stores in the U.S.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, with having 5,000 stores in the U.S. Granted, that's more than Lowe's and Home Depot
Hmm.
has. I think they're usually a little bit smaller though than.
Yeah, like my store is 10,000 square feet, so we're definitely a smaller selection. We're trying to be like in actually embedded in the community. That's the goal.
Okay. And so yeah, the branding I think is a really big thing. And I think if anybody's considering a franchise of any sort, if you can't go to 10 potential customers, granted, not everyone, some random person on the street may
Yeah.
not want your product or service that you're trying to franchise, but someone who could be a potential customer, like if I walked in with a Orkin shirt, what do I do?
Hmm.
But pest control.
Yeah.
If I have a Roto Rooter hat on, you assume that something's
Plumbing.
wrong with the plumbing. So that so when I say branding, everyone, yes, they're going to offer a brand, but if it's not a recognizable brand, I don't think it's worth considering that a feature of what a franchise is offering. And I think Ace does, because you guys do national advertising, you guys have
Hmm.
excellent brand awareness. You know, uh, Basically all across the board. I haven't seen a company that has the act. I will say for the size of company or the level of access that people would have to it. I really haven't seen branding done as well because of course yes, McDonald's has better branding,
Yeah.
but nobody has the I think it like anywhere from 250 to $2 million to start.
Yeah. No, Ace is definitely not that much. I would not be here if that was the
Yeah, I
case.
was saying I don't think that that's the case, but I think it's a little bit more of an accessible franchise. And I think this is something else that Ace does really well as well, which is the second point of what I think a franchise should be offering is um, is operations. Something you being a logistics officer, you probably value this part of your
Hmm.
job on your day to day more so. But is there something that Ace is offering that their competition isn't from a operations standpoint?
Yeah, I think the best way to say that, and it kind of goes back into it's the support that the corporation gives you is really something that I found super unique about Ace. So I had the opportunity to sit down with the CEO and talk to him at one of the
Nice.
events I was at with for a little bit. And the thing he kept saying was, I work for you. I work for you. And that's, if you talk to anyone on the corporate staff, the board of directors of Ace, they all say they work for you because as a co op, we are the owners of the company. Like the CEO of Ace doesn't even own stock in Ace Hardware.
And I think that's the interesting thing, and you don't have to get too far into what that means, but I think the co-op structure is really what makes you guys unique over
Yeah.
um, someone like a True Value or a Lowe's or a Home Depot or something like
Yeah.
that.
So I think on the top level, the easiest way to describe it is we don't have an owner. We are the owner. So if you were to buy stock of Tesla or whatever company you want to buy stock, and technically you own part of that company
Yeah.
because you own stock of that company. And as owners, you can only own stock in Ace Hardware if you own a hardware store.
Okay.
So that is the requirement to own stock in the company, and then of course it gives you voting rights and everything like that. But our CEO, CFO, chief of marketing, all those people, they don't own stores, so they can't own stock in Ace. So they really have no say in kind of where the company goes. That is up to us. They just kind of guide us to
And I
get to that
think
next level.
and I think what I really like about the co-op structure, it's not pitting, I think in most franchises you end up getting this weird struggle between the franchisor and the franchisee, because the franchisor is trying to do what's best for the franchisor, and the
Correct.
franchisee is trying to always do what's best for the franchisee. And you end up getting a lot of issues with that, I think, down the road. Whereas from what it sounds like, it sounds like there's not that big of an issue in the Ace hardware because of the
No,
structure.
like I have district managers and I have regional managers. But again, they say they work for me and they will show me where the button is to push, but they will not push the button for me, and they will not tell me to do something. They'll highly suggest it, but at the end of the day, it's my store and I get to run it how I want to. And that's a really nice thing. Ace isn't saying, hey, you need to do this. You
Yeah.
have to do this. I really can do whatever I want. I can carry whatever products I want. I can advertise it however I want. Like our logo is like a whole different Ace. Like we still have the red Ace in it, but we have palm trees and surfboards in our logo.
Oh, that's cool.
So we're kind of free to do what we want with it in that retrospect.
And the third thing that I think is something that I think most people overlook when they're talking about a franchise opportunity, because most people, they get into a franchise because they don't know anything about business. That they knew,
Mm-hmm.
if they were business wizards, they'd open up their own business.
Yeah.
They would start their own concept. It's pretty rare that somebody who is really good at business, like a transitioning veteran, they're usually coming back home, and they open up a franchise because they don't have very much business experience. And I think one of the big things that people overlook when it comes to having a franchise over just starting your own business is going to be the community.
Definitely.
And I think that if your franchise, especially if they're trying to mask you from the community, that's a huge red flag. If they're just like, oh, don't talk to that franchisee over there, he's one of the bad ones, or something like that. Or
Mm-hmm.
if there's not literally a directory of, when you're a franchisee, if there's not literally a directory of every other franchisee that you can call and say, hey, how are you doing? Or, I'm sure that you call up other guys all the time and say, hey, how's this line of hammers
Oh,
selling? Or, something like that.
yeah. Personally, I'm in a few different things. So one is we're in the surf group, which is all the
Oh, that's
aces in
fun.
Southern California. We all meet up and we talk about how our store is doing, things that are working, things that aren't working. So that's a bunch of stores right there that meet up. Then I'm part of another group. It's called the Progressive Ace Leaders Group. That's about probably 1,000 people in like a big group chat. And essentially, someone has an issue, someone has a problem, they want advice. You shoot it out to everyone, then you get a bunch of feedback and responses from everyone. So it is very open between different owners and leaders.
And
And
is that
that,
just like a general like Slack chat, or
yeah,
like?
we use Google Meet or whatever
Okay.
that Google Groups.
I remember there was and this is a long time ago, I won't say the name of it, but there was a software that I licensed that, the big part of it was the community thing, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, there's other people who are licensing this software that we can talk to. But I remember they specifically always pushed that we have to do it through their website, and then they would censor things. And that was something that, again, that's just a really big red flag. If they're trying to I think in the community aspect, if a company is trying to somehow restrict speech between franchisees or other owners,
Yeah.
or censor it in any way, that means they have a whole lot to hide. Or if there's no one for you to talk to, that means they don't have any other franchisees. And why are you paying them to grow their business, basically?
Yeah.
Is kind of my thought.
And I'm not competing against all these other owners. Like we all have like our area and we're a local store, so I'm trying to sell to my local neighborhood. That is my goal at the end of the day. but we're all trying to help the overall company. We're all shareholders of the company, so we all equally want to grow it. And I think that's where a lot of the discussion comes in. Also, at Ace, because it's a co-op, you don't pay franchise fees. You buy stock in the company, but that's what you're buying into. We get dividends and you get really good benefits because you bought that stock. But I don't owe someone money at the end of the day, which is really nice too.
I'd say that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I usually warn people against getting into franchise agreements overall is because, again, you're usually getting someone who isn't very business savvy.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting, some guy who's just getting out of their 4 or 5 year contract. They see a low cost, maybe it's a $50,000, $100,000, franchise for, I don't know, things like, something usually home based, like for, plumbing, home inspection, something
Yeah.
that people can get into, junk hauling, whatever it may be. Um, and so, you're getting somebody who doesn't really know very much about, yeah, how agreements work, and you're also talking in very weird numbers to them because they're thinking about their personal bank account. If you're talking
Yeah.
about my personal bank account, oh, I spent $3,000 on something. That's a really big personal purchase. But as as a business owner, you could spend $3,000 on something that could be literally like,
Almost on the daily.
yeah, it's something that you wouldn't even think about because it's just one of those expenses that kind of goes out. That
Yeah. I think the best comparison to that is, you spend $100 and you see that in your checkbook. If someone spent $100 on something, I probably don't look at it because it's you're nickel and diming your business at that point when
Yeah.
you have that much volume.
Yeah, but whereas if that was personally, if like, I don't know, if one of my kids went and spent $100 on something, I'd
Yeah.
probably be like, "What'd you spend $100 on?" But I think that when you're talking about those types of numbers, people don't necessarily, because they're not very business savvy, they can't really understand what those numbers mean.
Mm-hmm.
And give you a good example, even somebody who is very savvy in business can get caught up in this, where you'll have a franchise who they'll say, "Oh well, the $50,000 up front, we'll do an in-house loan for that, so we'll cover that. So it's only going to be like $2,000 a month out of your business's earnings, and then there's a $1,000 franchise fee every month, but then they don't even look into it where it's like, well, maybe 2 or 3 years later, that $1,000 franchise fee monthly might go to 2 or 3 thousand,
Mm-hmm.
and they might be saying that you need to buy another territory or a location, or a lot of these things that again, when they're initially talking to you, they're kind of putting it like, oh, but that $2,000 franchise fee, when it goes up after 5 years, you'll already own like 5 locations, and you'll be pulling in $50,000 a month. And what's the 2,000? That means nothing. And it's
Yeah.
a lot of that is going to be, I think it's an unnecessarily complex structure for what the franchise is providing, and I think that's where a lot of people end up getting caught in a lot of those traps where, like I said, I think the more the co-op structure and the open community and the great brand, if other franchises could have something very similar to that, I think people would, just have a lot more success with franchising.
Yeah, and the cost to get into the franchise of Ace is $15,000,
That's amazing.
and $5,000 that is waived if you're a veteran, actually. So
that's really good to
So
hear.
now you're looking at $10,000 is what it costs you to get into Ace. Of course, it doesn't take into account your building and merchandise and things like that. But
the actual
that'd be
franchise itself.
Correct. That would be the same thing if you go open a McDonald's. You're gonna have to buy equipment and all that stuff, and that's not necessarily included in the fee either. But what the $15,000, we'll talk about that is. So $5,000 is your stock purchase.
Okay.
So buying stock in the company. $5,000 is your brand assessment fee, and that is the only thing that I owe yearly to Ace. And that's really $5,000. They cap it
Okay.
for you, and that's just so we can do that national advertising, and you can do all the TV ads you see and all the brand recognition that you see. And it's really great bang for your buck if you think about it. Like, I could never afford to put an ad on TV myself.
Oh yeah.
And then the last $5,000 is your application fee. They just want to make sure like you're a real person
Yeah.
and you actually want into it. But if you are a veteran, they waive that $5,000 application fee. So you're at $10,000.
You know, and again, that's amazing. I've seen 50 to 100,000. You know, because I consider under 100,000 a low cost franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen $100,000 franchises that are providing way less and have out of those three things, you know, the branding, the operations, and the community, are offering sometimes none of those things. You know, they're kind of a no name, franchise or brand, or they're just starting up, and like, I don't know. You can't even get, we're talking about $15,000. You can't even start a waffle truck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't even sell tamales out of a van for $15,000. So I mean, I think that's an amazing structure they have on that, and I think that goes to say of why there would be 5,000 stores
Mm-hmm.
nationwide, and in why you guys are from a location standpoint more accessible than even Lowe's and Home Depot would be, is because that sounds, and maybe I'm in the wrong business. I don't know.
No, and they really invest in the stores that they have too. They're not trying to go knock on doors. They have open territories. There's always open territories that they have, but they're investing in you as the owner. Their biggest thing is like, how do we increase same store sales? That is
Yeah.
their number one thing, and they throw so much money into that themselves. That
Well, I know that you guys have been doing a real big push for the Ace branded products.
correct.
The kind of the more of the store brand. You guys have, how many thousands of store brand products?
There's almost every single product that you see. There's a store brand sitting right next to it, and don't tell anyone, but the store brand's made by the brand it's sitting right next to.
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, that's more of a reason to get it. I always like buying the Ace store branded products. I think that.
It's the same thing. It's just cheaper usually because you're not paying for a brand at that point. You're not paying for Rust-Oleum, or you're not paying for the Benjamin Moore brand essentially on a label.
Yeah. Well, I mean, grocery stores have been doing that for,
Oh yeah,
for forever. So, the fact that, Ace is doing the same thing, like, I'll buy the store brand peas or something like that,
yeah.
as opposed to
They taste the same.
they taste exactly the same. And, it's good to hear that, a lot of the tools, you're not necessarily getting a, less quality version of it. You're getting the
Hmm.
same thing. Um, and so if they're, as far as getting into business and being a reservist, or even for veterans or out there or anything like that, is there any piece of advice that you would have for anybody who's transitioning, or like I said, or maybe they're getting into the reserves and they're looking to do something else, not drive Uber or whatever?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is take that leap of faith. Like, I didn't know a lot about business when I got into it, but because I'm in a company that helps people out and they look out for, their owners and stuff like that, I was quick to learn and people were there to help me, and they honestly held my hand along the way for a large portion of it, and now I'm helping other people learn in their way in. But just take that leap of faith and put your head down and work. I think you can accomplish anything if you do that.
And about how long have you had your business?
It'll be 2 years this summer.
Okay, cool. And I usually say, if you're past the year and a half, 2 year point, and you're still getting a lot of value from your franchise, it's usually a good franchise as well. I find that even some of these more higher cost franchises, people will get what they need out of it within that first year, basically.
Yeah.
Any of the hand holding, any of the techniques you need to learn, any of that knowledge that you need. But they're really not getting any value out of it past that, I'd say, year and a half, maybe even 2 year mark, depending on the franchise that you're looking for. And that's when a lot of them kind of go rogue, or start bad mouthing the company that they're franchised under, anyway. But I think it speaks a lot to have somebody who's been in it for 2 years and still getting a whole lot of value, from the franchisor.
I could not imagine doing this alone. And even now, I still rely on the corporate staff immensely for certain things like either I don't know what to do or computer systems down, some weird thing like that. And then also, they're on the cutting edge of everything. That's their job to make us the most profitable that we can do. So like I don't have to worry about price changes or
I was about to
any.
say that's probably the only reason why I've never gotten into retail myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could keep up with how everything should be priced.
Yeah, I don't touch that at all. That's all Ace. They do all that for us. They do so much for me that lets me really enjoy my job. They take a lot of the burdens of pricing and those what products are good, what products you shouldn't have, margins. That's all them.
Yeah, I think it's funny because we work with a lot of restaurants here over at GoBe, and they're usually like small mom and pop restaurants, but like their idea is like every 6 months or so they give us a call and they say just raise everything by 50 cents or $1, and that's kind of like their that's kind of their pricing structure. I'm like, man, did they actually do any calculations on food costs on that, or did they just
Yeah. And Ace is actually like the quite opposite. They're not telling us to raise, they're telling the vendors to lower their prices. They're like we don't buy from you, which
nice?
is they Ace is such a strong brand and big company that they can strong arm a lot of these vendors to because we are some of these vendors' biggest clients.
I'm sure.
So the pricing is very competitive that we get. I've looked see if I could beat it. I can't. So
Oh, I'm sure. And I would say so. What would be your well? I would say because you're not a vendor. What would you say is your favorite part of your job? That on the ace side of things.
I think it's helping people.
Okay.
Getting someone coming in with a project they know nothing about, whether it be electrical, plumbing, hardware like that, and you give them the parts that they need. You explain how to do the project, and they go home and they did a project they never would have thought they could have completed on their own. I think that's so rewarding at the end. And the next time they come back with a big smile on their face, how grateful they were that they
And
did the
that's like a loyal
project.
customer for life,
You
right
got
there.
them for life. And it's fun at the end of the day. They got to do something that they wouldn't do, and you got to help them along the way. So,
And I think when you're talking about your competitors like take the opposite approach of
mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I've tried to find like a certain size screw or where something's located, even let alone actual help with the project that I'm attempting to do, which I think I've talked about on this program before that it's. I'm pretty bad with home improvements. I'm not
Yeah.
great with them. My wife tries to get me to do them all the time, but I try my best. But yeah, usually if you go into one of the the bigger guys hardware store, I don't even think any of the staff or employees know where they are
No,
even.
we sell customer service.
Yeah,
That is our number one thing that we sell is customer service.
which is something that I think is lacking in most businesses nowadays because they assume that the value isn't there, and I mean same thing when you're talking about Walmart or something like that, but I think there's always going to be a business for something that's going to be customer service oriented,
Hmm.
just like Ace Hardware is, and then so and you kind of alluded to this as well. So Ace Hardware seems like you have a real commitment to your community, which is one of the big tenets for you guys. What are some things that you do as a business owner for the community that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, so we've partnered with the Oceanside High School Wood Shop and a lot of their tech programs to help support them. So we do roundups every month. Right now we're doing a grill raffle for them where we sell raffle tickets. We give away a free grill and all the proceeds go to them.
Nice.
We also partnered with Oceanside Star Theater to donate money to them. We've given money to the Oceanside Turkey Trot. We're a big supporter of that and the Move Your Feet Foundation. So promoting those healthy actions there. Our newest one's coming up is we're promoting the Women's in Film Festival. So we're a
Okay.
big sponsor for them, just to promote like women in general and that you can do anything that anyone else can do. So those are some of the big things that we're doing. Last year we gave about $30,000 back to the community.
That's great.
So that was our big thing that we were able to do last year, and we're on track to do it again this year and even more than that. And the biggest thing is I see that as partially our advertising.
Okay.
So we put a lot of our advertising costs to giving back to the community. That's the way, or at least I justify it to myself. But we wouldn't be anywhere without the community, and I think it's really important to help give back to them too.
So Logan, thanks for being on the podcast. I love talking to you about Ace Hardware and franchises overall. and what basically veterans should be looking out for if they're looking at getting into one. With the price tag that you talked about with an Ace Hardware, I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody watched this podcast and went home after their EAS and opened up Ace Hardware, because it sounds like a really awesome opportunity for veterans.
I would highly recommend it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat if I had the chance to. So
Nice. Well, cool. And then also, if you guys get a chance to like this podcast, subscribe. And if you're in Oceanside and you're doing anything hardware related, you have a DIY project, you're a contractor, anything like that, go and see Logan over at Ace Hardware. And we'll see you next time.